Happy New Year.
Happy
And
New Year.
thank you for joining us for Coffee Zoom with the Mayor. We're joined by Joelle Aguirre, Manager of the Municipal Sales for Republic Services, and Olivet's Public Works Director, Mr. Bruce McGregor.
Good morning.
Thanks for having you both coming here this morning. We want to know, how can we learn to reduce and reuse and recycle? What can we do in our community to help do these kind of things and, helping the environment and, saving money and energy? What kind of things can we do as a community?
Well, the biggest thing that a resident can do on a daily basis is to recycle
Mhm.
and to learn how to recycle properly. So with contamination being such a subject in the recycle industry, there's really 6 materials that we want. And by recycling those materials, that means separating them from their trash. They will get processed and they will get sold and turned into other material. So those 6 items are, I guess I could go to a slide here.
Sure.
Oh, no problem, no problem. Okay. Okay. So for those, I figured that out right now. So those 6 items are cardboard, paper, the metal cans, the plastic bottles and jugs, the cartons, and the glass. So glass is a little controversial because not all markets process glass, and it depends on the material recovery facility. So our material recovery facility is equipped to collect it, dispose of it, and process it and resell it. So in the St. Louis area, St. Charles area, glass is an acceptable material. Just a little tidbit though, if you go into our website, republicservices.com, that is our national website, and you will not see glass on there. And that's just because it depends on what territory in the United States you are. But here in the Metro East, we take glass. So by removing these items, just these items out of your waste, it diverts that material going into a landfill. And we all know we want to elongate the life of a landfill. So that are the materials we want. And then really, if residents, people can keep it as empty, clean, and dry, and just know what you're throwing, that would help clean up the recycle industry.
Is it true that if you say you throw away a container of orange juice and you pour it out and you get the last bit of it, if you don't wash it out, then it doesn't become useful, or it becomes, not as useful? Or are we required to wash these containers out before we put them in, or?
Catch-22. So we want things as empty, clean, and dry. So if it's pretty much done, toss it in your container. If it's a 4th full and you don't empty it out and you throw it in your recycle container, you just contaminate it. It's going to spill out, and you just damage the other recyclable material. So you really a person just really needs to use common sense, meaning I always use the peanut butter jar. So you have peanut butter and most people scrape it out and you get the last of it. And then you just toss it in. If there's caked on the side, if there's a 4th left, then you just throw it away. Okay. So did that answer your question?
Well, yes.
So as empty, clean, and dry as you can get it. There's no need to put things in the dishwasher because people do. You don't need to take a label off of a soup can. That is not necessary. So again, just think of those 6 items, keep everything as empty, clean, and dry as possible, and an individual can recycle responsibly. And I got to brag a little bit. Our website, recyclingsimplified.com, is a fantastic resource for anybody. It's tips and tricks. It's what to throw. There's videos on there. And for educators, there is a complete curriculum, K through 12, actually it's pre-K through 12, of lesson plans that are ready to be downloaded and used. I mean, it's a fabulous website, recyclingsimplified.com.
Okay, that's very interesting. What do you think is the most recycled material that you get? What is the most recycled thing that you have?
Well, right about now, it's cardboard
Uh-huh.
because of all the online shopping, the e-commerce. So there's a lot of cardboard. And there's also a lot of aluminum, beverage aluminum cans. That's what's coming in hot and heavy right now.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
What, so we look back at the days of early recycling, and all of that has a long history of having bulk collection, even at Public Works in the 70s and 80s, where people would just dump steel, aluminum, and paper. What happened with glass? Why
Meaning-
is it such a hard item to recycle now?
One of the, I can answer that in a couple of ways. So one of the reasons is glass is very heavy. So since not all recycling facilities have the infrastructure to process it, the transportation to get it to where it needs to go is costly. And not all people want to pay that price. So number one, it's heavy. And the other thing was the infrastructure and the equipment to have it.
Okay, so it's not that it's a bad material, it's the transport cost outweighs the reuse value.
That is a big factor. Absolutely. Mhm.
Yeah, I've heard people who argue that recycling costs just as much as making a new product itself. How do you argue against that?
Well, that argument prior to the pandemic, I guess because of the pandemic let me rephrase that. When China Sword happened around 16, 17, and the contamination went high, the whole world lost China to export their recycled products to.
Can you step back a minute
I
and just
can.
explain what happened and
Absolutely.
how China is such a big factor, shipping
Absolutely.
and everything, and then you
Absolutely.
can step forward.
So remind me what your question is,
Right.
because this is kind of a
I'll-
long
I'll-
answer.
Yeah, so
Okay,
how do you argue the point against people who say that recycling costs just as much as building a brand new product itself?
so going back in 2008, when automation and recycling really became popular, the industry wanted anything and everything. Okay, and one of the reasons is that we took anything and everything is because the world used China to export their recycled products to. And China didn't care about the residuals in those loads coming across on those ships. So the world had a very inexpensive means of transportation to get the recycle to China, okay? And then China would then put their goods to be sold, to be exported into these countries. And it was a very inexpensive means of transportation to get it back and forth. So over the years, China it was back kind of in 2016, China said, we're kind of tired of getting all this basically trash contamination with all this. So they started putting restrictions on how much contamination could be basically on a load. And so it got down to about 17, 18, where it was like a 5%, it couldn't be more than 5%. And that was just almost the industry was unable to meet that. So basically China just shut its doors from taking this material. So overnight, there's all this recycled material with really nowhere to go. So then the cost of processing, let me rephrase it, the cost of separating out the true materials that are recyclable versus the contaminants or the trash that was commingled, that caused the recycling processing costs to basically triple. So back in 2008, the cost of recycling at the curb or for the resident or the cities was relatively low because the recycle industry could make up it on the back end with the commodity sales. Well, when we call this China Sword, when this happened, those commodity sales fell because we didn't have anywhere to go. And we still had collection costs of collecting this material and still to sort out the contaminants in there. So that's what China Sword is. So did I
Yeah, it's a good
answer?
explanation. The bottom line was, China was a viable market because the ships were coming to the United States full and going back to Asia empty. So it was very inexpensive to ship there, but then they developed their own recycling markets and it became untenable for them to accept our goods as well. So that drove the value up. So that's a bit of the history
Yes.
of how the single streams marketing became very tenable for communities
Yep.
because of that initial good value of selling abroad. And now we're at a point where we can't send the materials abroad and we're having to redevelop our local markets, which are more expensive to redevelop. So that'll segue into, what do we say to somebody? Well, I heard it costs just as much to recycle that plastic as making virgin material. And the explanation would be, at this point, it is still of a benefit value to send it to recycling than the cost of going to the landfill. So, and as we approach landfill capacity, that gap between recycling and trash value is going to increase, and recycling will become more valuable. So right now in the Midwest, we're very fortunate. We have landfills that are local in our region. In the East Coast or California, they're having to take waste, trash type waste, put it on rail cars and ship it out to other states. And that is a whole cost that we are just not accustomed to in the Midwest. So keeping the recycle process going is very important, because we will approach capacity, not next year or 5 years, but we will approach that capacity. And having the infrastructure in place to have a good recycling is very important for the future.
So back to the China thing, I would guess that they just simply didn't have the environmental laws to protect the environment that we have here over there.
That is true. And the Olympics brought a lot of eyes at that time on China. And China's like, and they also said that we gotta clean up our act.
They also didn't have programs throughout the country to collect recycling on their own. So it was easy in the industrial areas to receive these ships and to treat those. It was difficult for them to get the commodities through the expanse of the country from their own local generation back to those facilities. And so they've since developed their own recycling programs in country. And that's in essence a competition with our goods.
So, one of the couple of things, jobs have been created here in the United States because there's a couple of domestic markets that have opened up, basically focusing on the paper side. So that is a positive.
Do you think with the rising capacity of our dump sites, if you will, that there will come a time when we are required to recycle rather than being optional?
I'm sure that's not out of the question. And that's going to take a lot of education, to get people to understand the importance of it and the environmental factor. It's just not a feel good anymore,
Right.
so.
It's a pocketbook.
Yeah.
It hits in
good
the
answer.
wallet. When you look at when on the coasts, they would dream of having a 90-gallon trash container, to put out every week, at our fees. So when the economics will drive it more so than, like you said, the feel-good moment, that'll really be when it hits.
There are places in the United States that you get a 95-gallon recycle cart and like a 48-gallon trash.
I've seen 35s. I've seen smaller
so,
ones. It's really something.
Yeah. So to kind of force that issue.
Do you have any more questions?
No, it's great on recycle. I think just to step into the 3 R's though, recycle is the last one.
Right.
So the first two, reduce and reuse, are really the key. And that is a long-term mentality of organizing your shipping and your packaging and looking at a balance between convenience and environmental concerns, right? And finding somewhere in the middle to start moving towards. And it's a difficult choice for families. You have to balance out your work, your family, all the other social demands, and come up with a way to really focus on the first two, because they're in the beginning for a reason. Recycling is our last resort. And we really need to just change that mentality, the throw it out mentality and the consumption mentality. Even organizing as many shipments into one box as opposed to just, I need it tomorrow, I need it tomorrow, I need it tomorrow. And on one sense, this, these instant gratification with shipping is great because we're recycling the cardboard and creating an economics for it. But it really, for the long term, I don't know how tenable that will be either.
There's also something that you said made me think of, legislation that, is constantly trying to get in the works, and developing partnerships with the, Proctors and Gambles of the world to, look at their packaging, et cetera. Just, there's all sorts of metrics to look at there.
Right,
Mhm.
right. Is there, to your knowledge, is there any program where they take recycled materials to donate to organizations that are helping build homes for the poor and homeless? Where, we have so much plastic and so much cardboard and is foam recyclable?
No.
It's not.
Not,
Okay,
It's not it is recyclable.
Thank
It's an
you.
enormous expense to do it.
right.
okay.
The machinery that they use and it's really quite impressive the way it works. You can take a dumpster-sized container of styrofoam, and with the proper machinery, they can compress that down into these cubes,
Mhm.
okay, for sending out to be reused. But it's a very, very expensive
Mhm.
process. And styrofoam's had a lot of focus in the markets about developing redevelopment with soy products that are soluble and so on. But I don't know whether we'll ever see styrofoam recycling come back.
Yeah. In the single stream, maybe,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
in the curbside single stream.
Yeah,
I would
and
agree
as
with
far, of course, with household products, or building products, we have the Habitat for Humanity resale store. So there are opportunities to share those within the community. However, raw materials for reuse for a neighborhood improvement district, that's very hard to do.
I see.
Because you need to take the product, it needs to get turned into pellets or whatever the material is to go to fabrication somewhere. And that's just not something a local, a residential program or small municipal program could handle.
As far as, this really doesn't hit on your, your homeless comment there, but, residents that, can take their plastic bags, their plastic film, et cetera, to the grocery stores. And those grocery stores do partner with companies, and then they make that,
Trex
Thank
composite
you.
decking,
Thank
they're the
you.
biggest ones at most Schnuck supermarkets outside the entrance, you'll see a little container and it's made out of Trex and it has
Yep.
a stamp on it, and that is for plastic bag recycling.
you'll see some of those products in parks, in schools, benches.
That's the recycled material.
Yep.
You'll
Okay.
see it made outside, and you'll see this Trex was really the one in the beginning. It's a brand name, not sure
Yeah.
that you're plugging them.
Yeah,
But the real enemy, one of the worst enemies of contamination in recycle single stream are plastic bags.
Yeah.
So, everything's done by conveyors. And when the plastic bags get stuck in the rollers, it literally shuts down a whole production line. And
Does.
I'm sure there are some horrible pictures of all this,
there is.
turned into sinuous sort of loop,
Yeah. We call those tanglers,
Tanglers.
Garden hoses,
Mhm.
hangers, plastic bags, anything that can be, get caught in our gears that shuts the plant down for hours at a time.
Right. Yeah, and I guess my question, what I was trying to get at is, what's the best way to repurpose all these materials that actually could be used for some good,
Mhm.
you know?
I mean, there are so many craft projects. I imagine Pinterest has volumes of pages of what to do with yogurt containers. Recycling for gardeners starting their seedlings and, and ways to repurpose these, but it is, it's a commitment.
Yeah.
I do have a municipality that one of the elected officials has made it their baby, and they do take plastic bags and they've made them into mats, and they've given them to homeless people in their community
Mhm.
to put on the ground.
Oh, they weave them.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep, they weave them
That's-
together. I've seen it and I have sat on it, and it is Unbelievable.
Wow.
Mhm.
Well, I guess my other question is more scientific. I don't know. When you have your landfills and whatnot, I understand that the decomposition of organic material creates a gas. Is it methane?
Nothing. Yeah.
Methane gas. Does your facility, do they have a way of capturing that gas at all?
So there are, we do have those gas to energy programs in our landfills. How many landfills do we have? We have 190 throughout the United States, and I don't know which of them have those gas to energy, but in those areas that they do, I mean, that transfer can heat like 200,000 homes.
Mhm.
I mean, it's the equivalent of taking, what is it, 150,000, saving 150,000 trees. You know, so there are definitely, there's definitely factual data that's out there that benefits from those programs.
Joel, is the methane come out of high enough quality to use in the natural gas trucks? Because part of your fleet is natural gas, right?
Our residential line of business is natural gas, and I would have to get back to you on that question. So,
Do we have any questions online that somebody might have?
If anyone would have a question, they can raise their hand on the screen.
While we're
Oh,
waiting,
there's, well, I thought I had one.
while we're waiting for those, if on the question segue, can you pull up the slide bar that has how to contact Republic Services? Of
Absolutely.
course, you can always call
Oh.
the Public Works.
Okay.
Sure,
And
actually, we do have a couple of questions
Okay.
on, that were written. I apologize, I didn't see them in the Q&A. I put my glasses on. Doesn't glass break or shatter all over the trash as it's picked up?
it can, but it's all contained in that recycle facility. If it is broken upon putting it out on the floor in the recycle material, or putting it on the floor of the recycle facility, it will probably be discarded as a residual. But in the whole state, once it gets on the conveyor belt, it falls into the bunkers and it shatters.
Do you have a video that you could share or we could post afterwards of
Absolutely.
how the production line
Yep.
works?
That would be good.
Because I think that will give people a better sense of scale. Number one, how much is coming in and going through the facility, but the process of how it's sorted by weight and by material with magnets and all these different tools you're
Absolutely.
using to sort this as efficiently as possible.
Absolutely.
And then there's another question, what types of plastics are recyclable and what happens to a single-use plastic?
Well, all numbers, but, the styrofoam, is that number 6? Are recyclable. And what was the bottom line? What was the end of that question?
What happens to ones? that
What
are-
single-use plastics? I think what they mean is like the wraps, plastic wrap over something.
Like the
shrink
films?
wrap or films.
So, that, if that is what they're reference to, those wraps, that's considered film, that should go in your trash. Or you can take that back to your grocery stores,
So films like you get a new roll of paper towels.
off your
That-
dry cleaning.
Yeah,
Yep.
right. That can go in with your plastic bags from the
Yes.
supermarket. Of
Yes,
course, you shouldn't use plastic bags from supermarket anyway, or you use your own
Yep.
bags. But film off of, like, say you get a package of meat, that
Yep.
film should go in the trash.
film
because-
around flowers, film them
Yeah.
around your dry
Yeah.
cleaning, yes.
Then we have, it's a kind of a segue into, we need to recycle our own waste. Will Olivet, as part of St. Louis County, consider ban of single-use plastics such as grocery bags, clamshell, food containers?
Did we just answer that? The single?
No, I think that's more a question for the mayor, actually. Is that
I'm not
something
sure that
that?
is something that we would probably need to discuss amongst the council.
Mhm.
That wouldn't be a decision that I would make on my own, but it is definitely something that we should look into, because I am on board with doing whatever's the most appropriate thing for the environment. Little steps.
Right.
And there's such good opportunities now. You know, if you look at any restaurant supply catalog, you know, they have the single-use styrofoam, they have a recyclable plastic, and they have a compostable cardboard option.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's definitely manageable for restaurants and,
Right.
and places to make those steps.
And again, that is a step that they're taking in towards sustainability. So I did want to, on that question that Mayor, that you just addressed, I did want to say something. So the city of Olivet's single stream recycling is very good. So there is we have a threshold, we have auditors at the MRF, at the recovery facility. And we want that every load that comes in, we want it to be, really under, 11%, nothing over 15%. So we have auditors that are there auditing every load that comes in. And so my job is municipal. So when that truck comes in from Olivet, if there's any contamination, they're gonna take pictures and they're gonna send it to me. And then I review those with the city. We don't get hardly anything from Olivet. So I do want to give a hats off to Olivet's residents being responsive to the attention that they're giving their recycle.
That's why everybody wants to come live in Olivet.
There you go. There you go.
What do you do with shredded paper?
Shredded paper in the single stream, if you want that to be recycled, it really needs to go into a paper bag. If you just put shredded paper in a recycling bin, a cart, it's just gonna fly all over and it's not going to get to the end place at the MRF. So we do accept it. It just needs to be packaged right into your container.
So like a standard trash bag or? what
Like
kind
a
of bag?
paper grocery
Yeah,
bag?
yep.
Okay, so if you shred your important documents at home,
I'll do.
when you empty out your shredder, put it in a paper bag
Yes.
and then fold it on the top. You could probably put one staple in it just so it doesn't
Yep.
explode out. Other option is to look online for, I think, was it the Paper Chaser, or there are paper product only recycling containers around the city. So that way, if you're really concerned about it breaking open in your tote and making a mess, you could find one of those places and drop them. I think they're at libraries and schools and things around, but you'd have to look online or we can look.
And another option would be the counties, some municipalities do shredding events, and those are secured shredding events. So if you had, I just did one in a different municipality, and people did bring their paper bags of shredded material, pardon me, to the event, and it went in the shred truck. So
Okay.
it's another resource.
We'll let you do.
We have a number of questions
Okay.
still.
Okay, that's fine.
Is tape on cardboard an issue for recycling?
We would like it removed.
Okay. What percentage of material in recycling bins has to ultimately go to the landfill?
What percentage of the material? Well, we want it to be really at 11% or less. That's what we're shooting for.
We got a couple of questions that are kind of more about composting of food recycling waste. And I've been composting food waste for the past several years. Does Olivet have any programs to facilitate composting at home? And I can say that we have been, this is Barb Sunday, I'm the city manager, I'm just offline. We have been talking with Republic about how we can start a composting program. I don't know, Joelle, if you want to talk a little bit about where Republic is on that and who you partner with.
Right.
Um,
So we partner with St. Louis Composting, and that meet. So Barb and I and Bruce have been talking about this over the last several months, and Republic has a meeting with St. Louis Composting. It's going to be coming up in February to discuss the option of being able to food compost, at the curb. Right now, the commingling of yard waste with food with composting, there's some environmental legislation and concerns before we can say, yep, we're going to be able to do that, or yes, we're going to be able to do that. So we're a little bit on hold right now, and we want to get with my boss, Kevin Hinson, the GM, has already had a couple of conversations with Patrick with St. Louis Composting. So we're on the right direction to be moving in the right way.
And one of the reasons the city's working more closely with Republic on this, as opposed to, there are other vendors who will go and pick up compost, is because we already have an agreement with Republic and they're already out. So instead of adding kind of some more vehicles, if we can work something out with Republic on this, I think that would be a kind of a good start, since we've had such a long ongoing relationship.
So I would say to visit back late spring.
Oh,
Right, I
at
think
least.
we'd have some guidance on how to ease into composting at the
Yes.
curb
Mhm.
and work our way into that. So
In the meantime, I'm assuming that there's some residents out there that could be doing some at-home composting and putting it in their their landscaping. So for those individuals that are passionate about that, that is something that you could do between now and then.
Mhm.
did an article in Olivet Life a few years ago about at-home composting. So there's lots of good guidance
Yeah.
on the web and again, Missouri Botanical Gardens.
Oh, great. resource.
They have a great resource on sustainability at their website about more than just recycling and composting, but water harvesting, rain gardens, native plantings, and good programs as well for home sustainability.
Good resource.
Why do we need to be single stream?
Oh, single stream. First of all, we have the infrastructure to take all 6 materials. So there's no reason to have to want like an offsite container where the resident has to take glass to a drop-off site or to take cartons to a drop-off site. So single stream is definitely easier. Statistics show that there's more being recycled when it's single stream. There's no having to worry about what I put out this week, what I put out next week. It's simple. So we have the infrastructure, so there'd be no reason to have additional costs for another container to house in your home, to separate yourself. You can just throw it all in one container now, and you don't have to transport any of the 6 materials to any offsite location. Definitely efficient. That was a great question.
One more.
We have one more question then. What about those McDonald's plastic cups? What can we do with those?
If the McDonald's plastic cups has the coating inside, you throw it in the trash. That's in, whether it's McDonald's or whatever vendor that you're at. If there is a slick plastic coating inside, throw it in the trash.
Do you have any slides, any additional slides that you'd like to share with?
Well, some of the things that I have on the slide is talking about how the pandemic has also affected not just Republic Services, but the waste industry. So if that's where we want to go, we sure can do that.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay,
I'm actually gonna walk around this way so I can see.
okay. Oh, and then I guess I started off with just the basic services.
Yeah, I'm getting. it.
Oh, you're getting there. My bad. I was,
Sorry, just
nope.
a little bit.
nope. Am I good to go, Barb?
You are good to go.
Okay. So I just think it's important for residents of the city to know everything that they receive. So trash is a once a week collection. It's limited to the cart. One cart is provided at no charge. Recycle, same thing. It's once a week. It's limited to the cart. Yard waste, this is a huge deal. I mean, once a week collection, it's unlimited as long as it's contained in the right containers. Bulk, this is a big deal. Once a month on your last service day, a resident can place up to 2 items at no cost. So you get a new couch, you get a new headboard. All you have to do is put it out on your last service day at no cost, and we pick it up. You don't even have to schedule it. An appliance collection would be a weekly collection. There is a $25 cost, and that does need to be scheduled. You can't just set it out. If you just set it out and don't schedule it, it's the material in the appliances needs to be collected on a different truck, and it needs to be disposed of differently. So that's the difference between a bulk and an appliance, and why it needs to be, bulk doesn't need to be scheduled, but an appliance does. And the seniors out there at age 65 years old, they're eligible to receive a 10% discount. So they also have, well, you know what? That is a great segue. So There are a couple of means of communication with Republic Services. So first of all, if you want to just download our app, it's Republic Services, go to your app store. It's obviously no cost. You can set up service, you can't set up service that you would need to call, but you can report a miss, you can pay your bill, you can communicate a concern. To set up a senior discount, you could email customer service at republicservices.com, and you just give them your name, your address, and just let them know that you're a senior, and we will take care of, we'll handle it from there. And then you can also communicate online, go to republicservices.com, and you can set up your own account. So these are probably the fastest ways to not, I guess, not talk about just the senior discount, but just to communicate in general. You can always call Republic Services, and that number would be 636-974-5959. But I tell you what, the app is fabulous, and the response time on the online, or excuse me, on the email should be within 24 hours. So the senior discount, probably I would send the email or I would call. The pandemic has really changed the waste industry, and this just isn't Republic Services. This is any waste hauler. So the pandemic has, there's more people at home. There's more volume being set out curbside for those residential trucks to pick it up. That new normal is right about 5% more is being placed at the curb for collection. And what that does is, you know, trucks can only hold so many tons. And once they hit that tonnage, they have to go off route. They need to make a trip to the disposal site and then return. So if that extra material that is being set out for collection, that could lead to, if your trash is normally picked up at 10, it might be taking us a little longer. We might get there at noon. You know, so some people get a little nervous that, oh my gosh, they missed me today. Just be patient, just completely be patient. The supply chain impacts to the capital costs. I mean, our industry is very capital driven. The cost of steel is triple what it was. So the cost of these trucks that are in these municipalities have gone up. And so between the more people staying at home, working at home, learning at home, shopping at home, carrying out at home, these are driving the volumes up, and that leads to increased disposal costs for those haulers. We talked a lot about recycling just a minute ago, and we even talked about China Sword. So Bruce, thank you for getting that little history lesson. But continued investment in the material recovery facilities has been instrumental, not only with China Sword, but during the pandemic. So just a little bit about Republic Services. In 2019, $2.5 million was invested in sorting equipment, and that would have led to upgrades at our Hazelwood facility. In 2020, we invested a little over $1 million in baling equipment. So that's to bale it and get those commodities sold. And then every year, you know, we have the normal, you know, investments of forklifts and things like that. And so by investing in our facilities has enabled us to be able to process the increase in volume. It's enabled us to better sort and get a cleaner material for commodity sales. Just a little FYI, the capacity is still below the pre-China Sword levels. Right now, some of the commodity markets are up, and that's due to the pandemic. Like I said before, the online shopping, the need for plastic. So those have driven, the pandemic has driven a couple of those commodity markets up. I think almost everybody has been made aware of the driver shortage. You know, the CDL, I should say CDL driver shortage. So even before the pandemic, we have a retiring workforce that wasn't even being able to be kind of kept up with, so to speak. So the pandemic basically crippled that. And so what that has done is it's driven up costs for the industry. You see a lot of, and that comes in wages. So whether it's an increase in your wage or there's sign-on bonuses, incentives to, you know, get your CDL license, all of those costs have been placed on the waste industry. So that is a huge something that the industry is facing. And, you know, not just waste, it's other, you know, those deliveries that get delivered to your door. I mean, they're facing it too, the construction market as well. And, you know, and then through all this, Republic Services just has a commitment to sustainability. We talked a lot about recycle, and we're going to continue to invest in our facilities, and we're going to continue to educate. And, you know, there's a commitment to even electric vehicles coming soon. You know, the investments in the electronic devices that are now in our trucks that make our service more efficient. That is a commitment to the safety, to the sustainability as well. We talked a lot about recycle, and again, recyclingsimplified.com is our website. Fabulous resource. Pandemic. This chart just shows that residentially. I don't know if you can really read that, but in 2020 you can see that spike. And then it came down and then it spiked again. It's just showing you that those volumes residentially are much higher than the norm. And on the right side, it shows the commercial that because the commercial has, you know, really dropped off. I mean, really the restaurants are a big indicator of that. We talked about the cost of steel. We talked about the driver shortage and just our sustainability goals. So Republic Services we are in just a little stats about us. We have 14 million customers. We're in 39 states. There's over 36,000 employees. We are an invested company that that cares about the municipalities and all the places that we're at. We're happy to be here with the city of Olivet and be a partner in trash collection and recycling and sustainability.
Love the presentation.
Well, thank you very much.
Very nice.
Mayor, we have a few more questions if you'd like, if you have time.
Sure, go right ahead.
Okay. One is that some folks may not know that the city pays a portion of the cost of trash and recycling. That is true. We pay 40% of the cost. Best way to get a cracked trash cart replaced?
Yes, you could, if you have the app, or you can go online, you can call, and it's at no charge. And one thing, I guess, just make sure when you're communicating that you share your address.
What options do the elderly have to putting carts at the curb?
What options do the
So
elderly
we had the
have?
handicap service.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So if well, I guess it shouldn't just say the elderly, if an individual is not physically able to get their trash and recycle cart to the curb, we just need to know that, and we will code that as a medical stop. We ask that if there's someone over the age of 13, you know, that maybe you don't really need that service, but if you're living alone or you and your spouse cannot get that there, you just communicate to us. The best way is to send that email. You can if you have the app, you can put it in that comment section, or you can call.
There are some conditions to that the totes need to be placed at the front of the house.
Oh,
So
yes.
they have to be accessible and visible to the
Visible.
drivers.
Yep.
So
That's
it's,
good to
you
know.
can't step back to the olden days where we had our trash cans in the back of the house and the drivers would walk around and get them for wherever we placed them. So,
Yeah.
but it is a good service for impaired residents
Yeah.
to help with the
I have a
trip.
family member that can use that
Yeah.
right now.
Right.
And specifically for a senior age 65, upon enrollment, they do have the choice of that smallest container, a senior does.
There's a question with regard to condos and the disposing of items, large items once a month. And that's really, the city's actually been in conversations with Republic Services on condominiums and how that's done. And I think that's going to be a question that'll be at best be answered kind of with your condo association. I think we're going to be talking with condo associations on how do we manage some of the trash and recycling? And I know Republic's had some of those conversations already. There is also an update, once somebody wants an update on the Westlake landfill and the EPA. And, Joel, if you're prepared to answer that, because I know you were here to talk about all of
Right.
that.
Yeah, so that is something that I'm not going to talk about here today. And number one, because Erin should be here for that, she's our landfill manager and she has all the experience and the data, and I do not want to give out any incorrect information on that. But I could definitely, if there's a name and a number, I could definitely get Erin to contact that individual and have a conversation.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Those are the questions we have, Mayor.
All right. Well, I want to thank you very much for coming. to
My
visit with
pleasure.
us. It's been a very good conversation, insightful. I learned quite a bit myself.
Wonderful.
And thank you for coming as well, Bruce. And thanks to everyone who's tuned in to Coffee with a Mayor by Zoom.
Right.
And we will see you soon.
Absolutely.
Have a great day.
Have a
folks.
great day, everyone.
Thank you.
Break
I'm
to
gonna-
commercial.
Yeah.